Courageous love now. Courageous love now. Courageous love now. Welcome back, beautiful people, to Courageous Love Now podcast, where I am sowing the seeds of hope, speaking to beautiful healers, artists, creatives, spiritualists of all kinds, and listening to their stories about how they are moving through the earthly filters of consciousness in these now moments. Here we are arriving at episode 8, and I have the great pleasure to interview Cailan Robinson, who is an amazing human being on many levels. He's an artist and a creator. He's also a healer and very deeply spiritual human being. I'm very thrilled to share this conversation that goes deep into all aspects of his journey and the arrival of healing at all levels. We also do a live reading of numerology and past life card reading, which was quite exciting. So I invite you to tuck in and have a listen to episode 8 of Courageous Love Now. But before we begin, I would love to once again invite you to please subscribe, like, review, comment, whatever your podcast listening app is. Go ahead and leave a comment or a review below so that I get to know how you feel. Are you liking this journey I'm taking you on? Are you enjoying the conversations that we're having? Any feedback is welcome, even constructive. And meanwhile, you can also find the podcast on visual format on YouTube on the page Harmonize, the number 2, and the word 1. You can also find all the links to the podcasts on my website, www.harmonize, the number 2, the word 1.com/podcast. So, now that you've got all that information, let's get on to the show. Welcome back, beautiful people, on the Courageous Love Now podcast. I'm Lara Helena, Courageous Lara, and I am so excited to introduce a dear friend of mine and an amazing human being, Cailan Robinson, to our show today. Hello, Cailan.
Thanks for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
You are so welcome. And you are in New Mexico, correct?
Yes. I recently moved to New Mexico. Yes, I love it. It's amazing.
Amazing. I'm going to give a little bio about you and just to kind of update the folks that are watching and listening. Cailan Robinson is a tarot reader, a numerologist, and a crystal healer currently living in Albuquerque, New Mexico. He has performed countless readings and healings that have received rave reviews. Cailan has a deep passion for helping people to connect with spirit in the way that works best for them. And I had the great pleasure of working and meeting Cailan on set on January 2020 of the recently new film, Mank. And that is another layer of Cailan that we're going to discover today. So ladies and gentlemen, welcome Cailan Robinson. And here we are on Courageous Love Now.
I'm so excited. Thank you so much for having me again.
Oh my gosh, so good, so good. Cailan, I mean, just in giving my feedback, meeting you as an artist and then discovering all the layers of your healing capacities and your spiritual journey, and of course, where you've come from, et cetera. I just, in starting this podcast, the biggest thing for me was to join people that are artists, healers, creators, spiritualists that are moving through this current dimension that we're all on together and finding their way towards harmony, happiness, health, creativity, alignment, all of it. And I think that they're so intertwined, and coming from myself, that is a deep spiritual person and also a passionate creator, I just love to talk to like minds. And I would love to bring today the journey, a little bit of your path and how this interweaving of creativity and the healing arts has joined together and made you who you are today, and obviously guiding you forward into even more juicy stuff. So, so yeah, let's just dive in. Like, who is Cailan and what's Cailan's journey? Let's go.
Oh, yeah, it's been a very interesting time, and the last year especially has been a huge part of my awakening as a healer. So I started kind of my spiritual awakening a few years back, but it's really since the shutdown that I've really been able to have some time, some space to really connect with um, my greater path and how I can start to give back some of this knowledge and information that has been coming in pretty hot the last few years. And so now I'm doing readings for people, and I'm seeing them going through a very similar patterning of what I was going through when kind of just when you start to see the world, you see past the veil a little bit more, and there's different layers to that, but it's like once that initial shock happens and you're like, wow, everything that we're brought to like really value and go after in terms of like in a societal sense, I would say, is just one aspect of what life is really about. And what's been really cool too is to explore all the spiritual implications of everything about life. I do believe, and I've seen through my experiences so far, really that the spirit world is so intertwined in our own world, and it's those. I'm really interested in helping people to find a way to connect more with that spiritual realm. And I think what's really cool is in this day and age, we have so many different types of tools, and we have the internet with all this great information and all these amazing books, obviously, that have been written throughout thousands of years now of our current societal history. It's just amazing. It's an amazing time to be in. And through my readings, like I said, I've noticed like a lot of people going through these great awakenings, seeing the same numbers on the clock and thinking about their friend, and they call them right away. And it's just these dreams and these synchronicities, coincidences type of things that are happening. And they're just trying to like understand what's going on. And so I think, shifting into the Age of Aquarius is something that we've been prepped in for a while now. So we're aware, we've heard it. And I think that that's a big part of the timing of why a lot of us are here and in this moment right now. And maybe too why some of us were living in the matrix, so to speak, and really like unaware of what was going on a deeper level. But now it was timed out perfectly. So now we're able to really kind of open our awareness, open our blinders, and see, whoa, there's so much more going on here. And so I think using this time of that transitioning from the Age of Pisces into the Age of Aquarius, I think, you and me and your listeners and people involved in these types of topics are really here for a reason at this time, to really help with that transition and keep it on the positive side of things. There's always going to be balance, but my job right now is to really help to empower the empaths, to empower the people that their awakening is really just begun, and to encourage them and to connect with them and feel with them too, sympathize with them. And so I've been really enjoying doing that work this last year.
That's amazing. Amazing. I would love to ask for you, I mean, how, knowing a little bit about your journey, obviously you come from, at least when we talked the first time, you shared with me that you went from like real estate into being an actor, and now you're a full-blown healer. So I'd love to kind of know a little bit of that transition. I mean, did you always feel that you were an artist and a creator and a healer, or was that something that you feel that was like lying dormant through earlier years and then you had an awakening, or how did that journey go?
Yeah, well, I always was acting ever since I was a little kid. I would get up on any stage that was around and just start dancing around and doing stuff. It was actually my dad, who was actually a very macho type of a person, recognized that in me and saw and said, go audition for this community theater show. And I wanted to back out when the audition happened. I got really nervous. And he was like, no, you said you were going to go. You're going to go. And ever since that audition, I was always doing theater. So that was probably when I was like in 4th grade or so. And so I was always doing theater. And then I went to NYU for theater and also media, culture, and communications. But really why I was at NYU Tisch was to be a theater performer. And then after college, I did, I did tours and I did shows different places. I was a part of the Actors Equity Union, which is the stage union. So I really was doing theater for a long time. And that's a lot of traveling, and you're living out of a suitcase and you're in and out of New York all the time. So I basically was like, I need a break from this life. I'm going to move back to California. I'm going to move to LA, and I'm going to see what happens. And so when I did that, I got a job right down the street waiting tables at a fancy restaurant in Beverly Hills. And I met one of the Real Housewives of Beverly Hills. That was, she's been on the show since season 1. She's one of the really popular.
Amazing.
Kyle, yeah. And so I met her, and she basically was like, what are you doing? And I was like, well, I was acting for a long time, and now I'm trying to figure out what I'm going to do next. And she goes, you should work for my husband, Mauricio. And so Mauricio, he's on the show too. He's a popular guy. He's like the real estate agent to the stars, so to speak. So it's like Lady Gaga, the Kardashians, Rihanna, Chris Brown, they all buy their homes like he's their real estate agent a lot of the times. And so I started as his assistant because they had just started the company. So I did that for about 6 months. And then he said, what do you want to do here? And I was like, well, I really see a vision for the marketing department, because there was a couple of graphic designers, but there wasn't a structured marketing department. So I said, I really want to help you build this marketing department. And so I did that, and I was there for 5 years total, and I was marketing coordinator, then marketing director, and then director of corporate marketing, and we did we sold crazy homes. I mean, most of what we sold was $50 million and up.
Wow.
In the Los Angeles area. And so we sold things like the Playboy Mansion and just crazy homes. And part of my job in the later years was throwing parties and events and corporate sponsorships and things like that. But so I got to a point where I had a lot of responsibility and a lot of, like power, if you will, and a lot of like connections with like the Hollywood scene, things like that. But ultimately, it just became blaringly obvious that wasn't where I was supposed to go. That wasn't where I was supposed to be. Even though I was given this totally once-in-a-lifetime opportunity just handed to me to be in the most competitive real estate market in the world and make all these connections and be really successful in that arena, something was off. And I found myself drinking a lot and partying a lot and just, slipping into patterns that are not so healthy, And so, and it was around at that same time too that my boyfriend and I started bringing in crystals to the house. Like we started really getting interested in crystals, and on weekends we'd go to Quartzsite and go check out the gem and mineral shows out there, and we'd just bring back all these crystals. And I'm thinking too, that was all meant to be, and to bringing that energy in. And as I brought that energy into the house and surrounded myself by that kind of higher frequency energy, my true self started to come out a little bit more. And then that wasn't fully aligning with my environment and everything being about the money. How much money do you have? How much can we get? How much money can we get from the house? And, from all these experiences. So, it was a big accelerated time for me, and it was also very scary. And so basically I quit. I let them know that I'm going to finish out these events, but I'm going to be done after that. It was a very hard decision because it was good money and I was having fun and it was good people, but I was just definitely really feeling called to something else. So then I took some time off. And while I took time off, I was flipping through my Amazon on the TV, And all of a sudden, this show called Cosmic Disclosure just started playing. And it's and in the show, it's on the Gaia Network, and it has David Wilcock as the host. And this was season 1, so Corey Good was the person being interviewed. And basically, they were talking about the secret space program and talking about the things like behind the scenes, like the shadow government and things kind of like this. And I'm just like, what is going on? But at the same time, I have a really good distinction of when someone's lying or telling the truth. And I just really felt like truth coming off of the screen. And it was really just from that moment on, it's just been a constant study and finding out different modalities of healing, but also too, it's like taking a look at what's going behind the scenes in terms of like maybe with government or with media or certain things like that. That's a personal interest that I started to really pay attention to. And so I'm taking time off, right? But you need to start making money when you have time off. So then I started acting again. So I got an agent, and I really wanted to enter into things in the film and TV world. And so corresponding with this whole like awakening and just like downloading all this information, reading about all the crystals and reading about, all the different like vortex points of the earth and all this ancient wisdom too, is that really put me in a place where I was really ready to start healing myself. And so it was really important, I think, to have some time. And I think it's important for everyone, not necessarily like you have to quit your job, but I definitely think it's really important to give yourself some space in order to start letting this stuff come to you.
Yeah. And when you say healing yourself, you just mean like energetically, emotionally, physically, I mean, at every level, right? I mean, like all kinds of healing from your life, etc.
Yeah, absolutely too. And I do think that everybody has different ways that they're here to heal in this lifetime. And I think too, what giving yourself some space does too, is you really start to get to know yourself, and you start to, as opposed to just being on that hamster wheel and trying to
chase the next dollar,
make the money and do all that, right? You can't make money, but it's just kind of reevaluate your priority.
And did that like kind of coincide? Obviously, that coincided with you getting back into acting and being in the environment of like being on sets and having more time to self-reflect and be in a creative space, correct?
Absolutely. Yes, exactly what you just said, which was a very important aspect of it. At the same time, is the energy, as you will know, the energy on the movie sets can be very extreme. And there can be a lot of that AI type of a presence where there's just all those cameras and monitors and just that electromagnetic frequencies. So on one hand, I was expanding my awareness, and when I was in holding and things like that, like really taking the time to find those YouTube channels that I really connected with, or listening to those audiobooks that I really love, like from David Wilcock or from Grant Hancock or from the different people that I connect with. And so it gave me that time in the space, but at the same time, as it really challenged my empath abilities, I should call them, because I really want to empower the empath energy these days. But it really helped me to learn how to build that bubble around myself and to not be so affected by the energies around. And there were some really intense situations too that went down. I mean, right as I'm learning about, even just about like who the Freemasons are and who the Knights Templar are and who these secret societies that kind of, like the Freemasons have a temple in every town in America, and the members are men only, and they're the heads of each of the industries, right? So then you start to see kind of behind the scenes how there's this like structure that is not like promoted in any sort of way in terms of our television shows and our movies and stuff like that. So as I'm learning about these secret societies and these things like that, and two, they'll get together and they'll do ceremonies. Well, the first television show that I had a more than just one day on, like kind of a reoccurring type of a situation, was a show called Strange Angel. And my role was to be a part of a sex magic ritual cult. And this was, and it was about the guys that started NASA. It was the Jet Propulsion Laboratory, which then became the like the framework for the NASA program. So then you even learn, even at the beginning of the space race and everything, is these guys were doing rituals and connecting with forces that are outside of our realm of things. Some people might call them demons who they were connecting with, but either way, it was just me being there, and now I'm learning about the stuff as I'm reading about it. I'm now
fascinating.
I'm getting
you're like literally playing it out to be in a mock-up, etc.
Exactly. Wow. And there are a lot of different stories I have like that too, with with sets and with just weird synchronicities like that. So it was definitely like really calling me towards something. And at first I was like, well, am I supposed to be one of these people that has a YouTube channel that talks about this, that shows the symbolism in the music videos, in the TV shows, in the movies, and be like, guys, look, like they're putting it right in front of your face. And that's part of what allows them to do it too. It's this right.
Interesting.
But after a while, I realized that wasn't my path. My path was to be more of sharing the information and the knowledge of how people can heal themselves. So then the shutdown happens, and I'm like, wow, great. Like, what am I going to do? I really miss being on camera. And also too, I had been selling crystals on the weekends at a shop in LA. And I really enjoyed that. So I missed selling crystals and I missed being on camera. So then I said, I'll start a YouTube channel about crystals. So I started a YouTube channel called The Crystal Guy. And I just have really enjoyed putting information in a way that might seem a little bit more grounded or accessible for people to start to understand like why crystals and crystal healing. And in that process too, it's just, like I said, with the shutdown, it's just been a really big acceleration for me and my healing path. And now the card decks that I use and the numerology that I've used for years to help myself is now the gates have really opened, and now I find myself doing a lot of readings for people here in New Mexico. So what was pretty nuts was then I moved to New Mexico.
So you moved to New Mexico during the shutdown?
During COVID.
Please share that story. How did that open up? That's amazing.
I know. Well, it's like it's a place that my boyfriend and I have knew that we want to live and we want to end up in New Mexico, but it was like time. How do we make that transition? And then with the shutdown, it's like things weren't happening in LA in terms of the film. We did open up the crystal shop, and we were the first crystal shop in LA to be back open in during COVID, which I take great pride in, because we did, the curbside delivery and we followed all the little rules that we needed to. But I take such great pride in that and giving back to the community in that way. And so like we said, the film wasn't really happening, and then the protests were going on, and they were pretty close to where I was living. And so we just came out to New Mexico. We're like, we haven't left town since the shutdown started, so why don't we get out of town and just get some fresh air, pretty much. And so we came to Albuquerque, and we just were like, oh, you know what, let's just see what they have here. And the first place we saw, it was totally perfect, and the next day the lease was signed, and it's like, all right,
wow,
we're gonna do 6 months and see how it goes. So then when we're moving here, the U-Haul, we're driving up, and I live in a place that's pretty unique. It has 2 apartment buildings, but it's connected with a historic Route 66 hotel. So it's called the Elvada. And they just renovated it. They made it really nice, and they have food pod restaurants, and then they have shops. And so we're pulling in, and I'm like, oh, High Vibe Crystals. There's a crystal store here. No way. That's so crazy.
So the crystal store is literally connected to your apartment complex.
Yes. And then I go in, and I love it. I know. I go in and I meet the owner, and she happens to be a big assistant director on all the stuff that shoots here in New Mexico. So
No way.
yeah, she's working on the Roswell TV
Wow.
show right now on CW, and I was like, oh, this is so awesome! What an amazing store! Like, I'm just moving here, and I showed her
Mm.
the Crystal Guy, the YouTube channel, and she was like, do you want to work here? Like, I really need somebody while I go work on this show. And I was like, yes.
That is amazing. Talk about major synchronicities, like all worlds colliding.
Right? I know.
Wow.
So the
Wow.
day I moved here, I got a job selling crystals here. And that's what
Amazing.
gave me the platform and the venue to start
Right.
doing readings for people. And
Yeah.
so that's how we're doing it now.
That is amazing. Wow. I mean, it's funny because as you're talking, and of course, we met just over a year ago, and even my experience, and I've told people about the story of meeting you and just the synchronicities that we had on set, on Mank. And that was, I mean, just going into that situation was kind of surreal to start with. And I had just literally come out of having the flu. I'm pretty sure it was something else, but I won't even say the name. But at that,
I
do you
remember you
remember that? I came and I was like, I'm on steroids. I've
had
been sick for
steroids.
7 days and I just knew I was going to be on set for 4 days. And I've got to so yeah. And here we are as dancers, right? On this set in a 1930s set film. And we're all like, all the dancers called to set. We just kind of like, I just remember looking at you in your green suit and like, oh, he's kind of cute, and like, oh, I could match up with him, we just like came together, and next thing you know, you're like, come over here, follow me, you were just like scoping stuff out. And next thing you know, we're like right behind the lead actor, and boom, and we're like in many shots in the scene that we shot for 4 days. But anyway, I mean, excuse me. The interesting thing for me was how everything that you've talked about like kind of unfolded over the course of our connection over the course of those days. And I mean, I remember leaving set that first day and just being super exhilarated and thinking how amazing it was, and how what fun it was, and what an amazing coincidence to connect with someone who vibrates in such a similar way as me, and not even knowing anything about you or that you were into crystals or anything. And I think it was the second day you like reached in your pocket to get out your inner ear, and you pulled out like an amethyst or something, and you were like, oh, whoops, that's not my inner ear, that's a stone. I was like, oh, you got amethyst in your pocket, and then next thing you know, you're pulling necklaces out with big stones on them. And I was like, oh, no wonder I'm feeling so grounded and tingly in my solar plexus dancing next to you all day. So I mean, it was just, and you talked about symbolism, and I thought that was so amazing, because we're in this building that was built in, it must have been in the 1920s, if not earlier, one of the oldest buildings in downtown LA. And you start pointing out the symbols and the different symbolisms in the building itself, that while we're like discussing all these other topics, and the power of symbolism, and where they're just kind of putting everything out there for you to see. So yeah, I mean, it was just, and then of course, as I found out you worked at the crystal store here in LA, and ended up coming and buying a bunch of crystals, and evolving my understanding of that world too. And I think it's just so interesting how, I mean, I've talked about this in one of my earlier podcasts, like one of the first books I read on my spiritual journey back in my early 20s was the Celestine Prophecy. And that was so much about like putting the dots together between the synchronicities of life, and certainly the avenues that I've gone on in the philosophical ways or spiritual ways. It's always been about like kind of looking back on life and seeing how everything kind of pushed me to the next coincidence, right? And the next synchronicity of like how my life unpatterned, and where, you can turn and look, as we can understand right now, because a lot of people are like, why me? What's going on? That victim mentality, to pushing into like, no, taking ownership, taking back your sovereignty and your power, and realizing that you're the creator of your own universe, and your own reality and your own narrative. And I just think that that's so interesting, for me at least, in the vibration that I felt from you, literally just being on set, and the circumstances that happened over the course of those 4 days, with different interactions I had, and the conversations that we had, and walking away from those 4 days and just feeling like, wow, I just had a profound experience with someone else who's awake in a reality that's such an illusion and a dream. And it was kind of like this, I don't know, pulling yourself in and out of this like bubble, right? And I think, as you said, that you were reading all these books while you're in this, like, living in this little bubble of illusion called a movie set, right? Where you're creating a reality that you're gonna show to others, right? I don't know. It was just a very interesting, yeah, it's just a very interesting experience, which leading into the months ahead, because it was only a month and a half later that the lockdown and everything started, and that we're living literally in a bubble of a kind of an illusion that you have to, like, literally pull yourself out of without, like, otherwise you're sucked into certain narratives. And I think that that's been, at least for me, the most powerful thing over the course of this last year, because from the get-go, March 16th or 15th, whatever it was, I was sitting over in Europe, and the introduction of this journey that we're about to commence on as a humanity. And I was like, what? Something's not right. Wait a minute. Everything in me, my intuition was just like, wait a minute. So as you said, like the advancement of my own internal listening and empath and spiritual guidance system was like directing me very clearly in a new path. And I was just like, okay, well, I got to listen. And I went through, numerous ups and downs, and kind of like, what, peeling the veil, as you said, peeling the veil. And it's interesting you use even the term veil, because I just recently had, when I was in Utah and had my hair done, I also had an amazing energy healing from a shaman that I had never had before. And it'd been something I've, like, really intuitively being called, like, I need to find a good energy healer and someone who's, has that wisdom. And we talked about the veil. And that was something that I've been reflecting on a lot lately, is that I've always known that I've been very connected to source. I've been always, like, very compelled and feeling my intuition, feeling my truth kind of guiding me, and in that way of, like, being kind of codependent. So I'm always, like, trying to please others, but then also very connected to my own truth. So it's like this weird, like, dance with, like, oh, I got to nurture here. Oh no, I need to isolate and pull myself and, like, listen to my truth. And, oh, I need to take care of and heal, to, I need to, again, go off and be a monk on a mountain or something, but the interesting thing, sorry, I want to lose my train of thought here. Yeah, was the veil. And that's something that even the podcast, in starting this podcast, this is, I think, going to be episode 8 or 9. And the listening to that need to want to share with others, to connect with others, to elevate and lift, because there's so many things right now that can drop us and pull us into fear, which I was very much a victim of in certain circumstances over the course of the last, 365 days. And that being said, it was like, okay, I need to focus on love. I need to find the courage to come back to the positive. And like you said, going into the crystal healing, going into, like, being at the service of other people and your purpose. And that to me was like crossing over my veil even more, because again, I absolutely love acting. I miss it. But there's an aspect of me that was like, how much of that part of myself is truly being at the service? And is that, like, stroking me as, like, oh, I'm successful, I'm, my ego, my career, all of that? And how much of that, like, again, that dance, as I've talked about in earlier episodes, that dance between being the healer and being the creator, and being the healer, and, oh wait, the healer and creator can be the same. And okay, podcasting is just one aspect of that, but then how to take that dance and evolve it even more. So yeah, I mean, just it's been amazing. And sorry, I'm totally, like, going off on a tangent here, but so much of that was just inspired by your sharing, and I completely resonate and understand that journey. And I mean, for me, I've been saying to my partner, like, I think I'm ready to leave LA. I don't know where. I'm getting called to go to Sedona, Arizona. I don't know what it is. I just needed to get in a car and drive out there, So there's definitely, like, really big signals that are being held up for me in numerous different avenues. And I'm kind of like that. There's a part of me that wants to resist, because I'm like, no, I'm this. And no. And I'm like, no, you're not anything. This is just a little label you've put on yourself. So how, and I'm sure, as you said, you've been working with a lot of people around these specific topics of like it's like that breaking down your identity of who am I, what am I, why am I here, what is my purpose? And then of course we have all those titles that we wear as our job or our title with our partnership or a parent or what, et cetera. And like really breaking those down and saying, why am I here? Like, what am I really here for? What is my sole purpose? And that was the energy work. And I talked about that veil and crossing the veil. And it's really and sorry, that's going back. I said to her, I can feel like I'm in my authentic self. I know what my truth is, but there's still this veil there. And I feel like I need something to catapult me to the other side of it. Like, do I need an ayahuasca journey, or do I need to go out on, for 2 months in the desert and just be, a meditation retreat, like this, like discipline to be able to really pass through. It's almost like that layer of the fascia between the muscle and the flesh. It's like this veil that's like, oh, I don't know. It's like there's energy flowing through it. You can see the other side of it, but you can't access it. Like I can't get to it. I know what's over there, but I'm not fully embodying it. So I don't know if that brings up anything for you, or I see your eyes getting like really big, but it's something that's been really interestingly just cognizant and like really present in my psyche in the last like months. And so much of what I'm doing is just trying to trust the path and trying to trust, okay, this, where I'm being propelled and going, okay, I'm kind of free falling right now, but what does that mean? And how do I disidentify with these old me's and step into this new me that I know is like waiting for me, like, hey, your shoes are right here, go on, step in, So yeah, I don't know if you have anything, if that's bringing up anything for you.
No, absolutely. And I think part of the challenge of going through a type of awakening like that, and it starts with the people that are more sensitive to energies. It's like, if the people who are already kind of on that border to feeling this type of stuff and being aware of it, it's like we're the people that start to like really learn how to alchemize that type of energy, and not just keep it secret, because a lot of these
Yeah.
very advanced ancient teachings have been around for thousands of years, but they've really been kept in secret. So they've been kept behind a veil that even like society, on a societal level, the if you want to call them like the leaders or elites or whatever, however you want to refer to them as, is kind of, they've kind of put up this veil, so it's like they have access to that knowledge, but the masses don't, right? And that's kind of how they help to like continue their agenda and different things
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah.
And so what I think right now, what's happening though, is that this information is becoming more widely available to all, and I think that that's really beautiful. And I really connected with what you said too about like the movie sets, and how they're kind of this illusion, this dream that we're making up. And that is very Age of Pisces. The Piscean energy is very dreamy. It's all about illusion, and it's ruled by Neptune, which is all about, he's all about illusion and drinking and being like, what? And it's like kind of this confused type of an energy. Whereas Aquarius is like, it's innovation and it's information flying in the air. So like taking advantage of this technology and using it to grow. It's like a lot of people are on their phones with like social media, and you look at the kids and they're like, it's like TikTok all day. And so I definitely think there's like something to be cautious of with really putting our whole like identities into the digital world. But at the same time, it's like, look what we're doing right now. We're able to connect across the country or even the world and talk about these things. So I think it's just about like how we use that type of energy, and use this transition into the Age of Aquarius to help expand our own awareness, expand our own consciousness. That's like in Hair, this is the dawning of the Age of Aquarius. And they portrayed that as very like in this very hippie sense, with the big fros and Peace Man and all that kind of stuff. But that was their way of interpreting that type of energy where it's like
Mm-hmm.
it's not doing the status quo anymore. It's not following
Right.
traditions just because. It's like
Yeah.
it's why. It's like, and it's really about supporting individualism and people being free to explore their own way, like
Mm.
exactly what you said too. So
Mm.
it just kind of throughout this whole interview so far is I'm getting a very like Age of Aquarius type of a theme, and it's
Mm-hmm.
like let's jump on to that energy. It's like a train that's going. It's like let's get on the
Mm-hmm.
train and be together and find that humanity, because that's another big thing about the Aquarian energy. It's about humanity, and it's not about the
Right.
few that have. It's about what's fair for
The
everybody.
whole. Mm-hmm. The
Yeah.
collective. Yeah. Interesting. I mean, it's interesting what I mean just came to me around, especially the technological jump, right? I mean, it's something that I've definitely been over the course of like 20 years. I was really involved in an organization that was very like science-based and future and technology, and how that's going to save humanity and help humanity. And where, there's also others that are like a big fight with like, no, it needs to be all natural and organic, and you kind of like an anti-technology. So it's interesting, the discussions of transhumanism to, the just, the one world governments to the one world money system, all this type of stuff that is a huge dialogue right now. It's definitely something that I had reflected on years ago, and over the course of like years was thinking, oh, that could be kind of like beneficial. But, it's interesting, what keeps coming up for me is like, okay, a pencil is something that I can draw a picture with or write a beautiful poem, but it's also something I could stab someone's eye out with. Like, so it's all about how you use it and what's behind it. And I think that that's, again, as you said, with these like secret ancient wisdoms, the technologies, the things that we dream about as being something that can save us, can also be our biggest enemy. So it's all about the intention that's gone behind it and how we're using, even quote unquote magic, or the spiritual world. And we know the history of, and the history that we're told of witches being killed and burned at the cross because they had special abilities of telepathy, or they thought they were connecting with Satan, or whatever, you know what I mean. And that was only for men to do, is to connect with the spirit world. Or so even those type of storylines and narratives we're seeing now, as you said, we have always had this ability all along. I was just watching Outlander last night, and it was just one of the episodes in season 1 where she gets taken away as like being called a witch because she's a medicine woman, right? And it just made me reflect very much on, you know, all of this information has been around since the beginning, and slowly it has been stripped away and taken away, so that we each don't feel that we are a sovereign being with our own power to be connected to not only each other, but with all the realms that exist, source, God, however you name it. And as you said, this great awakening that we're all on, as far as I feel it and see it, it is a time, it's almost like a time of reckoning when it's like we're emptying out the closet and all these things are like, wait, this whole thing that used to be, you know what I mean? It's like we're taking back what is ours. And that's from like indigenous cultures taking back their rights to their land, to people taking back their ownership in, a relationship, or, so it's at every little minuscule level, which I think is why everyone's having such a breakdown, because you have to have a breakdown in order to have a breakthrough. And that breakthrough is like, as you said, going through the veil of going back into to truly the like, oh, I've been covered with this invisible blanket for my entire life, and I didn't know what was on the other side. And now all of a sudden I'm peeking my head out and going, wow, all of this existed all along and I had access to it, I just didn't know. So
Yeah.
it's really like mind-blowing sometimes.
Yeah, and it
Yeah.
can be really overwhelming too, and
Yeah.
especially when and some personality types more so than others, but it's like now it's like seeing more of the truth and wanting to help to fix it, right? Because at first you do all the stages of grief, and you deny it, and then but then once there's no denying anymore, then it's like
Mm,
you go through the different stages, and then I something that
mm,
I felt really heavy was like, what can I do? And then as I tried
right.
to kind of go at it with this energy, and like with the movie sets or like different places in Hollywood, kind of like going at it with this energy of like fighting it and like
Mm-hmm.
attacking it and being like,
Mm.
get out of here. Well, what I found was that was just added fuel to the fire with those
Right.
energies. So it was kind of that, then I kind of got sucked more into that negative energy and might start
Mm-hmm.
to feel really depressed or anxious. Like there's
Mm-hmm.
like nobody sees but what I see, and I want to help, but I can't
Mm.
because no one will listen to
Mm.
me, or I'm physically, manifested me in me physically too, a sickness. And
Mm.
I think that what really helps me when I get into times like that, because of course that's still going to keep creeping up. A lot of these things we talk
Mm-hmm.
about, it's not just snap your fingers and it's done, and you're
Right.
healed. It's. I think
Of
it's really
course.
important to remember that it's a process. And I think the thing that helps me the most is, like you said, when you start standing up for yourself in a relationship, so to speak, when you
Mm-hmm.
start to step up into what you're comfortable with your boundaries and
Yeah.
things like that, and not allowing yourself to be manipulated by either your
Mm-hmm.
partner or by anybody really.
Mm-hmm.
I
Any
see
relationship. Yeah. 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 For sure.
yeah. And I think what happens then is, then you start to heal the hologram, like everything that we're
Mm-hmm.
in, it
Mm-hmm.
you start to holographically heal it from you outside. So it's like a
Yeah.
lot of times we want to pick up the banner and fight, or wave the
Mm-hmm.
flag and put everything outwardly. But I think that the best thing that all of us can do for ourselves and for the collective is
Mm-hmm.
to really work on healing those deep, dark aspects of ourselves. And I think
Mm-hmm.
that for some people, if it tends to be a more narcissist, controlling, manipulative way, then it's finding the balance there. But it's also really important
Mm-hmm.
for the empath, for the people that give, like you said, like you give a lot, so much of yourself. Well, it's about also balancing that side of things
Yeah.
too, and
Yeah.
not
For
falling
sure.
into the victim mode. And like I said,
Yeah.
is looking to start standing up for yourself and heal yourself. I
Mm-hmm.
truly believe that then that healing starts to spread in ways that are so much more powerful than adding fuel to that negative fire.
Absolutely. It's interesting. It brings up to me a number of different things that I've kind of been contemplating lately around exactly what you said around like you can't fight a fight with more violence because it just becomes more negative energy. You can only fight violence with love. You can only fight the opposing force with an opposing energy. Otherwise, you're just adding, as you said, fuel to it. If you think of it in energy terms, and it made me reflect a lot. And I think I brought this up before as well of like when I was young, how I always used to have these like ideas that, I could heal people with my love and I could go into a jail cell and turn a mass murderer into a healed person, or, like this kind of idea of what love is and this energy that I saw when I would see bad people, and that people always were like, why would you always attract yourself to like the broken people and the ones that are this, and I was like, yeah, because there's opposing force in me that wanted to show them that I see the love in you, because I see that you don't recognize it in yourself, you only see the bad. So I want to show you, I want to be a reflection for you that love is really there, right? And so it's interesting because it's happened throughout the course of my life with different people that I've met, that I really resonated towards people that were really freaking horrible, or sad or broken or something, and there was a part of me that was like, oh. And I reflected on that around, is that the codependent in me? Is that because I came from an abusive father and a broken home kind of thing, that I needed to heal it? So you could look at it in one aspect, or literally that I had such a connection to love that, like you just said, I wanted to go into the struggle and show love so that I could help them recognize it in themselves. Now, you can't you can take a horse to the water, but you can't make them drink, right? So I know that now, that I can't like change somebody. However, I can present something to them and they can take it or leave it. And definitely this last year, when you talk about boundaries and going into these energies with, the riots and all the different narratives that have been going on, I have like, been pushed to my maximum around putting my border down, putting my line in the sand and saying, this is as far as I'm going to go. And I'm sorry, this is, you've gone way too far and now I have to stop you. And I've never been good at that. So what came up for me just now was when we're learning to protect our own energy or to take back our power, it can be really clumsy at first. Like I did some shit that I like regretted. I was like embarrassed of because I lost my shit. I like went into rage because I was just like, there was so much energy there that I just, Medusa came out, it's like, whoa, I don't know how to do this. This is a whole new thing to me to like create boundaries and say, no, you can't, so it came out really sloppy. And for me, that was like the biggest catalyst of my year was specifically that. And I think that that was in turn me recognizing how much of my power I have given throughout my life and that I didn't put my boundaries down. And finally that like inner me just went like, no, I've had enough. Like enough is enough, and it was like a ricochet of like years of me never putting my foot down. So it was fascinating to feel that energy. And being an empath, and the ricochet that I catapulted out there was one of real violent energy because I was so unfamiliar with it, but I'd also gotten to a point that was my tipping point. So anyway, just maybe you'd like to talk a little bit more about that, because I think that from what I can see is where people are either completely numb or they're completely enraged, and that like how we're kind of these like sloppy pre-pubescent teenagers right now with dealing with this kind of energy.
Yeah, it can definitely be at first an overreaction,
Mm-hmm.
and it's
Mm-hmm.
about like really, especially us that are really feeling it now. It's really,
Mm-hmm.
I believe it's really about working on, like you said, love and compassion and understanding. And it's almost to, from what I've been seeing, is that people working a more older soul type of an energy are the ones that are first like coming back online, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
And what can happen is then judgment can start to then get thrown by those people at their family or at their friends. And really, it's just a process that you go through. But that was a big thing for me, was like really just not interpreting people as like idiots, it's more of just
Mm-hmm.
understanding that like that everybody has their path that they're on, and they have the different
Mm-hmm.
times that they're meant to awaken to this kind of stuff. And even if it's not in
Mm-hmm.
this lifetime, that's okay. And I think that it's
Mm-hmm.
important for everyone to kind of feel out and understand where they are in their soul's journey, and
Mm-hmm.
to feel really um, solid and comfortable in working that, and not
Mm-hmm.
having to, not putting the people around us or our family members or other people that we interact with up to the same standard that we put ourselves, and
Mm-hmm.
like
Mm-hmm.
I said, we're all working different things. One really awesome thing with doing numerology for people is that I just get to see that every single one of us has lessons that we're here to learn.
Mm-hmm.
And the combinations of the energies and everything, it's not the same. There's no two people that are working the exact same lessons all the way around. And I think
Right.
that it's just um, really important to keep that in mind, and to realize that are certain lessons that we're learning, or maybe some of our strongest gifts that we have, the things that come naturally to us. Well,
Mm-hmm.
those things might not come so naturally to other people, and they have a different skill set, a different gift set. And so it's just
Mm-hmm.
about learning how to harmonize those. And I think for us who are awakening now, the biggest piece of advice I could give is just to really focus on being very heart centered, and being very
Mm-hmm.
compassionate and loving, and really not to
Mm.
be judgmental.
Courageous love now. Yes, honey. 200%. I mean, that's, it is for me where the juice is. It always has been. And the more that I've strayed away from it, the more that it's like yanked me back to be like, no, 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 no. Right here, right now. You got to just like you got to stand in your biggest Joan of Arc stance, to fight the battle with love. Like and you have to do it right now. Like at every now moment that we are living and what we are facing and the challenges that are being thrown at us at every level, holding the reins of the reaction inside you and standing in courage to stay in love. I mean, that is like literally, I'm just like, okay, the tidal wave of love is with me. Okay, I see the tidal wave of courage is with me. You know, I'm just like, hold the line, hold the line. You got this. Like you've just got this. And that for me has just been my inner mantra on a daily basis. And hence even the creation of this podcast, because that is it. It's like, however you define it or feel it, if it's heart chakra, if it's Christ consciousness, is it the golden light, is it, you know, like whatever it is that is bringing you back to that source. Wow. I mean, with that being said, Christ consciousness and the age of Aquarius, anything you want to talk on that?
Well, it's really interesting when you go back and look at the passages in the Bible and Jesus' teachings, and how the even the symbolism or the metaphors, how they work in there is really fascinating. And then we look at it, what's going on today, and we're seeing, oh, there was a lot more than the surface level here that was going on. You know, and what I find really interesting too is that, especially here in New Mexico, I get a lot of people when doing past life readings. There's a lot of this connection with the Catholic Church and that structure, and then also too on the Native American side. And I see a lot of people whose past lives are connected with both sides and really understand and really experiencing what it was like to be in that really strong Catholic structure. And it's like you do this, you do this, you do that, and it's very
Regimented.
regimented, yeah. Versus the more native side of things, where it was more in with nature and things that were more connected with their traditions and their own things, and seeing the different roles that people will play in the past lives and to experience it. And on that note, today, what that means for people that are living today, what it'll be them growing up in a very Catholic home, but then having ideals that are very like connected with nature and with crystals and with other healing forms and other things that strict Catholics might say that's dark magic, or that's you know, the devil's work. And so it's interesting you bring up Christ consciousness, because I find myself in a lot of my readings advising people to take that spirituality that they learned growing up in a very structured religion like Catholicism, or if it's another very structured religion that has a lot of rules, and then you get and then you're told you have to believe in all of it or you believe in none of it, and then you're going to hell and all these things, and then you get kind of burned on a spiritual level. You get confused and you get burned. And so what I like to do is to encourage people to access those beautiful teachings that they learned at church, or in those very structured religious environments, taking the words of Jesus, taking the teachings that are about love, and then the other things just having some compassion for, and just saying, oh, that's not for me. So I think that drawing closer to Jesus's teachings, that Christ consciousness, I think is 100% the ticket. I found myself, you know, because that's how I grew up. I grew very Christian and very it was Quaker, and then it was Lutheran, so it's very very similar to Catholicism. And that's kind of been something that's I've noticed in me, is going back and studying the words of Jesus and saying, whoa, like this guy was pure love. You know, he was just 100% was love. So when he says things like the only way to heaven is through me, well, he was talking about is through love and what he represented. So then turn, you have to accept Jesus into your heart and say it just like this, or you're going to hell. You know, makes people that got confused. People. So I think that now is a really interesting time to kind of take those traditional teachings and kind of alchemize them and find the ways that we can work with them. And then at the same time, you know, working with crystals, you know, rose quartz all about love and compassion. Well, this to me like reminds me and vibrates at a level of more towards that Christ consciousness.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It's so interesting that you say that, because just on my own personal journey over the course of the last year and looking, researching, digging, I kept having Christ consciousness come up, and I was kind of, okay, so what is Christ consciousness? What does that mean? Because I know in my paradigm and in the things that I learned, I was very thrown into many different ideas and philosophies. I was like looking at, the life magazines of, evolution to, this, that, so all levels of reading the Bible to being completely into astrology to, so the whole spectrum. And I think that that's where I've approached everything, even on a political spectrum. And I've never been political. And this is the first year I've even like tried to even dive into it, kind of like, okay, so what is going on here? What is all this hate and aggression toward, like, so I feel that this pure aspect of me, because I've, again, in connecting the dots, the coincidences, the synchronicities, the pieces of life, I have always looked at all things as like puzzles. All religions were like a piece of the puzzle that it was my job to put together. So when I started to hear about Christ consciousness this year, and certainly with the resonance that I've had around love and the frequency that I think has driven me through my life, as I started to unpack that and really understand that, as you said, it, like alchemizing that information, that is like people have gone on a linear track about like the Bible, let's say, for instance, and looked at it in a linear way. Well, if we're going from 3D to 5D, how do you put that information into 5D? Well, everything is energy. So I was really just like, okay, trying to shift what is Christ consciousness into 5D. It's energy, right? And it's multiversed. It's, and this energy, of course, is coming from the heart. Well, what is the heart frequency? And then what is the hertz of the heart? And what are the, so I was really trying to kind of unpack it as far as looking at like, okay, this was a man and this was his story and this was the narrative and this happened, as a past thing, but as like a really present existing thing that we're all living, of like coming back to heart, coming back to oneness, because in the heart is where oneness happens and connection happens and unification happens. So all these like pieces of the puzzle have been like bubbling up for me. And it just was very curious what your thoughts were on the Christ consciousness, because I have done some Christ consciousness meditations that I've come across, and I was just overwhelmed and crying and just like, huge opening where, the dialogue or the verbiage that was used was very, I would say, more on the like religious side, but I just wanted to kind of explore what was that and how did that feel, and as opposed to like going to a yogic meditation and let's focus on the heart chakra, so it's just really interesting. And I think the biggest thing for me was just have an open mind. Don't use any filter of judgment or like linear idea around what this is. Just be open and just come back to the heart and feel it. So it's just, yeah, so interesting. So interesting. Yeah.
Very, very much so.
Yeah. So you've talked about numerology and you've talked about past lives. I know you mentioned that you wanted to do a little bit of a reading today, and I know we've just passed our hour mark, so I want to like respect your time. Are you okay that we continue longer and go on with yeah, that would be amazing.
Yeah.
I'm fascinated with the past life reading. I don't know if you want to start there. Is that okay to start with that? And then if we want to go into something else, we can.
Yeah. So actually, with all my readings that I do, I
Okay.
do a little numerology to ground down into the reading.
Mm-hmm.
And
Okay.
what's very interesting too is that after doing quite a few of these, is you start to notice a bit of a language that develops with
Mm-hmm.
the numbers, the
Mm-hmm.
energies that you're working, and then
Mm-hmm.
kind of these past life connections and lessons
Interesting.
that your soul is really wanting to learn through this experience. So
Here.
it's
Amazing.
so if I can get your birthday, if you don't mind. Okay, perfect. So what I'm doing is I'm finding your three birth date numbers. So 8, 9, 10, 4. Okay. So we have two of them. And then your life path number. Let's see. Just have to do a little bit of math.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I had my Akashic record from a numerologist read to me like in 2019, No, 2018.
2018?
And 2018 was, no, 2018 or 2019. I think it was 2019. Yeah,
That
I
sounds
can't remember.
right.
And that was very interesting. And it's, yeah. So I'm very curious. The first time I've dove into this since then. So
Oh, really? Oh, okay,
as
cool.
far as like, having someone else's perspective here. So this is exciting.
Oh, cool. Yeah. So
Mm-hmm.
this is your chart right here. And
Mm-hmm.
so the life
Three and a
path
one.
number tends to have the biggest effect on your personality structure. So
Mm-hmm.
numerology is basically the study of the energetic properties of the numbers 1 through 9. So in numerology, we reduce everything down to a single digit, and then we look at the energetic properties of that number.
Mm-hmm.
And this was actually developed by Pythagoras, who's right here behind me, in
Mm-hmm.
Greece. And it wasn't developed by him, but he went around and studied with all the great mystery schools of the ancient world, the Babylonian mystery school, the Chaldean mystery school, and even the ancient Egyptian mystery school. So he studied with all these people, and he went back to Greece and started a university. And in the university, numerology was like freshman year 101, and it was studying
Okay.
the energetic properties of the numbers. And this, he linked it with music, like the notes on the scale, like the
Mm-hmm.
octaves, and all
Mm-hmm.
in with nature and all these types of things. But what's really fascinating is you can actually tell a lot by looking at your birth date, and the energetic properties of that day you were born really speaks a lot to big themes in your life that you're meant to really
Mm-hmm.
go through and work through. So
Mm-hmm.
the looking at the numbers, we can tell our biggest gifts and our biggest strengths, and then we can also see what some of our biggest challenges might be. Okay. So
Mm-hmm.
for you, working a life path number 4, what we said is really about the home and the family. So it's a constant seeking of stability is really what's driving that was driving that love for the home and the family and having
Mm-hmm.
people together. And two, it could be your actual family that you're born into, but it can also then become your really close friends, your chosen family. So these are
Mm-hmm.
the people and these are the experiences that really drive a lot of what makes you happy and
Mm-hmm.
what really fulfills you in life. And actually,
Mm-hmm.
too, is looking at in your chart, you have another 4 as your attitude. So you have your life path number as a 4, and then you
Mm-hmm.
have your attitude number as a 4. So
Okay.
everything I'm going to say about the 4, you're kind of working that on a double time. So
Okay.
especially when you're looking at 2 4s in the chart, you're
Mm-hmm.
definitely um, meant to really work through your family life, like growing up as a kid. There's going to
Mm-hmm.
be dynamic relationships that go on with your family because
Mm-hmm.
on one aspect they're very important to you, and like we said, and you feel very like a strong connection and wanting those familial connections to be really good and strong and healthy. But then what happens when you're
Mm-hmm.
working that energy too is then you're provided opportunities to learn from them and to be challenged by that, and your
Mm-hmm.
stability gets a little bit shaken. And then what that
Mm-hmm.
does is that drives you out of the house to then go find your own stability, your own way, and how you're going
Mm-hmm.
to express your love through home and gatherings and that type of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Um, another really big thing for you too, working these 4 energies, is going to be like having a lot of really great ideas and like knowing what you want and wanting it right now. But it's just
Mm-hmm.
about staying structured enough and organized enough to make all these ideas really come to fruition, to
Mm.
actualize them. So the big little catchphrase with the 4 energy is stability through process. Okay. So it's
Mm-hmm.
really taking big goals and separating them into smaller chunks and getting them done one step at a time. So it's a very one baby step after one baby step. And once you
Mm-hmm.
lock into that type of an energy, there's no limit. The sky's the limit. So what's really helpful for you specifically would be making lists, like
Mm-hmm.
waking up in the day and being like, oh, there's all these things that I want to get done. It's like making a list of priorities and going step by step on that list And
Mm-hmm.
with that 4 energy too, as you get each of those items on the list done, it fills you up with such like, yes, like we're getting stuff done. And then it encourages you to keep going down that list and really executing
Amazing.
to make those ideas all come into play. So
Mm-hmm.
that's a big recommendation for you. And then also too, the 4 energy, it's really a lot about finding the balance between things. It's what's fair and what isn't. And what's big too is it can fall into a very rigid pattern. So what can happen is this energy of like, you should do this or you should do that. A really good catchphrase for the 4 energy.
Around saying that to myself or to others?
It would be both about for you and others.
Okay.
And
Okay.
really the working the working in that is finding what's appropriate for me, what's appropriate for you, and what can you tell me to do and what can you not tell me to do. And it's so
Right.
I'm bringing this up specifically right now because with the COVID times, like how you said you were kind of drawn to your limit with a lot of these kinds of things, for you that would be a very strong conflict because a big good phrase for anyone working a 4 energy, you're working doubles, so it's like it'd be good for you to remember the phrase, don't should on me and I won't should on you. And with COVID,
Beautiful.
we see a lot of, you should wear a mask, you should get the vaccine, you should do this, you should do that, you should stand 6 feet
Right.
away. It's a lot
Right.
of, so for you, that there's an extra layer of like figuring out like what's appropriate for you to tell me or for me to tell you. So just know that, in this time
Interesting.
that can help you.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the last number is your personality, and that's a 5, and that's all about freedom and adventure. Where the 4, because we were talking about the 4 with you, is the home and family and the stability. Well, then we get to that next number, the 5, and that's leaving the home and having an adventure. And it's still important for the home to be there to go back to, but that working that 5 energy, it's wanting to experience the spice of life and experience a bunch of different types of activities and things like that. So the big thing with the 5 is remember to stay disciplined in the areas that are going to afford you more of that freedom. It's the discipline, self-discipline, and then also too is self-care. Don't make sure you take the time to take care of yourself, because what can happen is you want to experience and do and do and go, but then where's the quiet time for you to kind of recharge?
Right. Wow.
Yeah, so that's just a little bit. I mean, I could go on for hours.
Yeah.
I do
Oh
a
my
new
gosh.
but,
I love it.
yeah.
Spot on with a lot of it. Oh my gosh. This is so awesome.
Okay, cool. So we'll do 3 cards for this
Okay.
reading, and I'll go ahead and shuffle them, and I'll connect with my guides and ask for any information that could come through that would be helpful for you and for you to heal and really move forward. So we're looking at past lives, but our intention is to heal and move forward.
Beautiful.
All right. So since we're online, I'm going to spread the cards out, and then I'm going to run my finger over them. And when you feel called, tell me to stop, and I will stop.
Okay. Stop.
Okay. Wisdom. See, so you're bringing a lot of wisdom in from past lives. Okay. And it's really awakening right now. This is really the sign of that those lessons that you've learned in past lives that you're bringing into this life are really like coming full force. And so with that unicorn, really the information is being directed out. And now what's beautiful is now you're in a place where you're starting to teach people, and you're letting that wisdom flow and really affect people. And what's really cool with looking at your numbers, with those 4 energies we were talking about, the 4 is the most grounded number of all the numbers. interestingly enough. And
Very
so,
interesting.
so you're coming from a very like old soul level that's had a lot of experiences and bringing in a lot of wisdom, and you're finding that balance of working that like that kind of like connection with the body. So it's like with the four energy, it's like very much feeling very connected with the body, and it's very much loving like really good foods in terms of how they taste, like it's very, and it's like good sex, and it's very grounded, and it's very physical actually. And you're a dancer too, which I think that helps to move, and it helps your like on a soul level, helps to draw down into the body, so you feel more like comfortable in yourself, more like
Totally.
your true self, because it's able to drop down into the body. And so what I find really cool about this is that you are, when you're coming at things from a grounded point of view, energetically, but then you're also opening yourself up to this higher knowledge, is that gives you the beautiful gift of really being able to connect with people about these types of subjects that they might not normally feel comfortable with. So
Right.
you might feel it as maybe a little too airy fairy or hippy dippy, or a little too like outside of the comfort zone. But what you have a really great ability to do is present this information in a way that makes sense logically too. And so I would encourage you, to keep it up. And it's like, even like how you said you were, how you had a very successful acting career and doing that type of work, and then balancing out with the more metaphysical energy healing type stuff is actually a perfect place for you to be. And and you're meant to be learning the lessons from both sides.
Great.
Okay. All right.
I
Let's see.
love that card.
Yeah,
Beautiful.
it's so beautiful.
It is.
No.
Stop.
Okay. Oh, angels. Oh my gosh. Do you
Funny
have
enough, that's the card that I saw the first time your finger went over, but when I said stop, you didn't stop on, but I looked at that card. So I'm so happy you grabbed that. That's so funny. I felt it right away. Oh, that's so funny. Angels.
the angels? So being very supported by your spirit,
Mm.
your spirit guides, and your spirit family. For you, I
Mm.
get a very strong connection with the Pleiadians. Actually, if you've ever heard of
I
have you ever
have.
heard of them or the other star systems, and
Mm.
we're all made up of lots of different genetics from all over the universe. And so um, on a soul level, though, you have a very strong connection with the Pleiadians, and the Pleiadians and their history, and how they're helping us to grow and evolve. And I think it's very interesting
Mm.
too. That's like the Pleiadians go, "You don't think we had the internet?" And it's like they're also helping us along and moving
Mm.
and moving in the direction of bringing more light into this world and evolving the planet and the people on the
Mm.
planet. So you have a very
Mhm.
strong connection with that. Um, Also, too, like the archangels, Archangel Michael and Archangel Gabriel might be
Mm.
two that you might want to look into.
Mhm.
Gabriel with your messenger work, like with your podcast work, and even with your acting work too, is really helpful with like sharing that message and shining
Mhm.
God's light for everyone. Um,
Mhm.
it's a really good connection. So you talked about that Christ consciousness meditation. You
Right.
might want to try an angel meditation or two.
Mhm.
Gabriel and Michael would be the ones that I would
Amazing.
recommend for you.
I love
Okay.
it.
And we'll do one
Beautiful.
more.
Stop.
Okay. Wow, you got all blue cards. So we have ships here.
Ships.
So three of these, and they're all. You got the three blue cards,
Interesting.
which
I
I find
love
very
that.
interesting too. And that's
Mhm.
very Pleiadian, is what I'm getting from that messaging.
Mhm.
And with the ships, it's like there's a past life that's really affecting your life now, and that would be very much one of traveling. And it also too, it would be like Northern Europe in like
Mhm.
1600s, 1700s, and being very much that transient type of energy. So it's moving from to to fro, and having great experiences that way. But then also too is when you're away from home for a big portion of your life, there's that sense of missing, there's that sense of lack of stability and being with your people. And so that's also too affecting, like what we said with your reading, with your fours that you have in this life. It's that seeking that stability. Well, that's something that you're also carrying over from past life. So I know that you like to travel, and
Wow.
you like to move around. So it's important to let that go. That's that 5 energy we're talking about, that adventure, that and spice of life and doing different stuff. But then it's also about finding your stability, finding your home, and where you feel really comfortable.
I love it. And ships, would it have anything to do with, spacecrafts, alien ships, angel ships, not alien ships, no, Palladian ships? I don't know.
Absolutely. And that's a big
Right?
thing too. Yes, absolutely. The light ships. And that's the big thing too, is in my readings, I always want to encourage you guys, like if that's something that came to you, that's real,
Yeah. Yeah.
And so it's a collaboration. This reading isn't just me
Interesting.
telling you all these
Yeah.
things.
Yeah. Yeah.
What comes to your mind? So the Pleiadian light ship is
Yeah.
perfect, and it's like,
Amazing.
I don't think of all my readings, I don't think I've ever done one where all 3 of the blue cards show. Because if you look at this, if you
Are
look at,
they only blue? Oh, wow.
they're all these different colors.
Amazing.
And so
Yeah.
it's like this blue, and I know that the Pleiadians really associate with that color, and then it's also too on a vibrational level. It's like the 6th chakra, so it's like for you too. I'm feeling a really 6th density type of an energy. If you're familiar
Wow.
with the
I'm
density.
not. Can you explain this extensity?
Oh yeah, so like I really get this information and trust it from the Law of One, which is a channeled reading. It's really interesting, and it's like it was done back in the '80s, and then all of a sudden, we look back at like science and where it's come, and they just talked about all this stuff that we're all getting to now. But
Yeah.
with the densities, it's really interesting because it's almost like the chakras. It runs in a very similar level. So it's like first density would be like dirt and the air and like the elements, and then the second density would be like animals, so they start to move around, and then third density is us, and then we start to have our own identity and things like that. Well then, as planets evolve, and because there's so many millions and millions of planets out there, well, how it goes in evolution is that we evolve in the planet. As the planet evolves, then the souls and the bodies on the planet evolve as well. And so from where you're coming from, in terms of like really being service to this planet right now, is taking the wisdom from your experiences on a soul level in the Pleiades system, and helping, and then incarnating onto this earth to help with raising the vibe and raising the consciousness. So on a soul level of service to others, and really feeling like this light worker type of an
Right.
energy,
Yeah.
it's coming from a very 6th density type of a place. So you can do more research on that
Okay, I will.
as someone who's pretty woke and very familiar with a lot of this stuff. That seems like a message that's really timed for you to kind of explore right now.
Amazing. I love it. Yeah. Wow. Wow. How fascinating. How
Yeah,
fun.
that was a good one.
Yeah, it was. It was. So you're doing readings like this all the time now? I mean, it's kind of like your your path. Your purposeful path. That's
Exactly.
amazing.
So
And
I have the
sorry,
crystal
go ahead.
yeah, I have the Crystal Guy channels on YouTube and TikTok, and also I have an Instagram. And then I started recently an online shop where I make crystal jewelry with my boyfriend, and then we also
Okay.
have some other materials there that are really helpful for healing. And that's called New Mexico Rocks on Etsy.
Amazing. Amazing. That's so beautiful. So right now acting is, I mean, you said you have an agent, right? The woman, right, in New
Yeah,
Mexico. Has
I
that
do.
been something that's been flourishing at all, or is it?
Well, it's kind of one of those things the industry keeps reopening and then it shuts down and then reopening.
Right.
And here with the regulations, it's wishy-washy. But she has
Right.
been sending me some auditions and I've been filming them here. So that's been really fun.
That's amazing. That's amazing. Wow. And so please let us know where people can find you if they want to have a session or to explore more of what you're doing.
Oh yeah. So you can check me out on Instagram at the Crystal Guy 23. And
Mhm.
that's a good place to message me if you wanted to do a reading. And right now I'm doing all my readings at $1 a minute. So I like to make them accessible for people. And then
Yeah.
I love to do online readings too. It's
Amazing.
just as good, if not better for me to be on, because it's like there's less context clues. There's less
Right.
other influences that can happen. It can just kind of be a really free flow of information.
Yeah. Amazing. Wow, Kaylin, this has been amazing. And thank you for that reading. It's like my brain's like connecting the dots right now. Yeah, I mean, definitely it's so interesting just going back to the numerology. I mean, the stability, the freedom and the stability. I mean, that's definitely been, I mean, even when I did my yoga teacher training, that was like, I think the qualities that was the thing that really stood with me is, learning the strength to have the stability, because once you have the stability, you have the freedom. And
Mhm.
that like taking it's like discipline and freedom, right? You have to have discipline before you can have freedom. One doesn't come without the other, right? And it's so interesting. And so when you say that, it with everything going on right now in my universe with my partner and my family and house buying and all of this and past stuff with my own biological family, it's wow, it's yeah, definitely churned it all up and was like, oh, hello, Lara. It is what it is. And it's so like, yeah, yeah, thank you for that. That was really a gift, really a gift to just
It,
have another reflection on it, because of course, you're constantly churning all this stuff inside, you feel it, but when it's just kind of spelled out for you in front of you from someone else and given perspective, it's all of a sudden you see it like, oh, now I can see it, like it's out here in front of me and I can, right? Beautiful people listening to this podcast. I recommend you look up Robinson, excuse me, the Crystal Guy, and New Mexico. I'll put it in. I'm going to put all the links in the chat so people can find you. But wow, what an amazing conversation! I can't believe it's an hour and a half. It's my longest podcast so far interview, and I know we could talk for much longer, but this has been exceptional to know you more, to hear your journey, and to share it with the world of the listeners of this podcast. So, really, really, is there any last thing that you'd like to say to the audience members, just around all the topics we kind of dove into today? Any last message of wisdom?
I honestly, the words of wisdom from you, actually, who pulled the wisdom card. And it was, I really liked how you said, hold the line, hold the line with love. It's the best thing we can do right now. And I want to thank you for taking the time to speak with me. And I've learned so much from this interaction too. And I want to thank everybody else for listening and being part of it. And I love you all.
So beautiful. Beautiful, beautiful. Thank you, friend. It's warms my heart to see your smile and feel your energy, and so love your story and finding synchronicity. I think my biggest message from this and listening to your journey is truly just listening to yourself, like listen to your heart, listen to your inner guidance system, because where it's going to guide you and where you will end up, you have no idea. And that's the most exciting part of this adventure, is if we really listen, we will go into the unknown waters of what our true life purpose and path is supposed to be. So thank you for sharing your authenticity and your journey with us today. It's really been brilliant. I'm super full with goodness.
Okay.
Awesome. All right, guys. This is Courageous Love Now, as we sow the seeds of hope. And we certainly did some of that today in the last hour and a half with Cailan Robinson. I look forward to bringing you more wonderful conversations with beautiful people. And until then, keep on listening. Bye-bye. Hello, all you beautiful listeners. It is that time for a little shameless self-promotion. If you've enjoyed this podcast or any of the previous podcasts I have recorded, I would be so grateful if you could subscribe and rate and possibly review down below. So whatever your podcast listening app is, there is usually an area where you can leave a review of what you thought. Even just a few words can make a huge difference. And as I am new to podcasting, it will make even a bigger difference to just get the word out there and also see what you thought. Thanks so much for your support and keep on listening.